Okay, so Unit 3, we're going to look at chapters 3, 5, and 6 of Cook. We're going to look at understanding what is meant by procurement, implement tendering procedures, and relate the supply chain to the procurement and tendering procedures. So we're going to get into what tendering is and the methods that we have. Okay, so just remember that we're looking at 3, 5, and 10, and not 6 as originally shown in the study guide. Okay, so starting with chapter 3. Chapter 3 basically starts with the three main objectives of the client, which is obtaining the golden triangle of cost, time, quality, and then health and safety, or scope, keeping it together. That's scope and health and safety I just added as an additional. Lots of commentators add health and safety as the lifeblood, and then other guys say no, it's a scope that's keeping everything together. So but that's just that's up for the debate. Okay, then looking at procurement criteria on page 23, continuing with that, other considerations for client includes the complexity of the project, the controllability of variations, degree of competition, client responsibility, risk on the project, and then remember there's different types of construction projects. You have buildings, and you have civil, may have only mechanical, you may have refurbishment, etc. Okay, so the outcomes of each process is the following. Appropriate procurement strategy has to be developed, and the client principal advisor or lead consultant is to advise him on this. And then the appointment of other consultants, and then the client brief and assessing the project feasibility, obtaining financing, procure and manager design and construction, and then realistic time periods. So you guys can see this is basically what we've done in stages 1 to 6, so project life cycle. It's the same thing that we're looking at. Okay, then the design process. Cook and Williams starts by looking at the REBA structure, and basically they divide it into feasibility stages, your feasibility stage, your pre-construction stages, and then your construction stages. So you will see on page 25, I've got a snippet of that as well, where the REBA outline plan of works, the traditional contract is laying out. Basically this one. So we have the stage 1, which has the appraisal, strategic briefing, your outline, which includes your detailed proposal, final proposal, your production, your tender documentation, and then your tender action. Actually advertising, getting the contractors on site, showing them the site, and what to do. And then you've got your mobilization, construction stage, and then after completion. So I would, you guys will have to be able to compare this to your 6 stages of project life cycle. So this is a bit of meat that's going to be built, that you can build onto your discussions whenever I ask a question. For instance, compare your REBA structure against your SACP CMP structure or project life cycle. Okay. Okay, so what I just did is basically highlighted what we already did in the previous classes. We've got the normal project life cycle as given by Burke, and then stages of 1 and 2, which is our inception, then our design and procurement, and then we've got our construction, and then the closeout. So this is what we've already dealt with. Okay, then we look at figure 3.2, and this is more or less just, this is also the UK again. I think ours is a little bit different because our traditional way of procurement is much more prominent than in the UK. In the UK, they have quite a lot of design and build um, projects, but with your design and build projects, you have to have a strong client. Your client drives the design and build to a certain extent, because you still have to go and procure a contractor to design and to build a project. Whereas in South Africa, I don't think there's the necessary experience to actually compile that type of documentation. So what the public sector usually does is to appoint the consulting team, who in turns assist the client in procuring a contractor. So that's the traditional method of procurement in South Africa. Okay, the SACP, CMP stages, I just listed them here again. Okay, then the local authority implementation of projects. So you will see this is now in the UK, their local authority model looks different than the one that, or looks very similar to ours. This is now not the REBA structure, but this is the local authority model of the UK. So they've got stages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, and you will see it's really basically the same as what we've got in our different life cycle stages. So you guys can go through that, a little bit more meat to build onto your stages as well. I kind of like this because they summarize it quite nice for us. Just looking at stage 1, for instance, assessment of the project proposal, inclusion in capital investment plan. So this is what the client actually looks at. They get a couple of projects, and they go to the financial board, and they advise, this is how much my project will cost, more or less. So at that stage, they just want a bit of a indication from the architect and the QS what the project would cost. And then stage 2 includes the feasibility. It differs slightly from ours. Ours is more, the feasibility is a little bit more at the end of stage 2, beginning stage 3. Appointing a design team, agree feasibility, project approval, and then on stage 3, you will see detailed design starts, and then statutory requirements, etc., etc. So it's very much the same as the ones that we've already done. Okay, then I just want to highlight 2 of the diagrams that's in your book. This is 3.3 on page 29. The building contract traditional procurement method. So what we usually have is we have the client, and then we've got the architect usually, who's appointed by the client, and then the architects assist the client to appoint engineer, or the engineers, the quantity surveyors, etc. And from that, a tender document is done, and a contractor is appointed. Okay, so these advisors advise the client on the contract, and then the contract is in end between the contractor and the client, and not between the consultants and the contractor. Okay, so but that you guys have probably already know from your CCM module. Okay, then the other one that I just want to show you guys is the design and build client-led design. No, I didn't include the design and build, which is slightly different, where there's only one line between the client and the contractor. You will see that one on civil and client-led, I think it's 3.6 on page 34. Yes, where the contractor is the lead appointee. Okay, just looking at this one, where the client is the leader, he still appoints an advisor who's the project manager, and then he appoints the architect, design, and service consultants, and the client design team nominated by the contractor then advises the contractor on the design. So the whole process, the main thing about this process is the contractor advises the client on who he wants on the project, and then the client appoints them. But the main difference on this type of projects is the contractor is already involved during the design stage. So it's a very nice way of doing this. Other ways of referring to this is maybe partnering or collaborative tender methods. Okay, then I just included something additional. It's the Construction Industry Development Board. They have a standard form of tender procedures, the standard for uniformity in construction procurement. So if you're on the contractor side, you can check whether a tender that you're tendering on is actually adheres to these parameters. And when you're a consultant, you can also check whether your contract is actually adhering to this. So you have negotiated tenders, competitive selected procedures, which is your nominated procedures, open procedures, qualified procedures, quotation procedures, proposal procedures using the two envelope system. What the two envelope system, do you guys know what the two envelope system is? That's basically where a contractor is not appointed on his price. There's rather open invitation for contractors to submit a proposal for a project. So you have the scope and everything. So the guys submit their methodologies, and then from there they screened, and then only they submit a cost. So for instance, they will take the 6 best contractors, and then they will appoint or give them a chance to submit a financial proposal, so that you, instead of going through 50 contractors proposals and cost estimations, you only go through, say, 6 or so. So you just shorten the list. Okay, in the proposal procedure using the two-stage system, which is similar than the two-envelope system. The two-envelope system is basically what it does is at the first submission, the contractor submits a methodology and a cost proposal, and then the thing is just everything is submitted at once, and then you screen the first envelope, and then only the guys that are deemed proper, then the second envelope is opened. Whereas using the two-stage is you first have the first stage of the first submission, and then you have the second stage of the cost variation. And then you have shopping procedures. Shopping procedure is where you, it's more like a quotation procedure where you have different guys giving you proposals and building a relationship with the client. Then you have competitive negotiated procedures, we have restricted competitive negotiations, and then open competitive negotiations. Basically what it says is that you get the quotations in, and then you can start negotiating with the guys on, if for instance I had one last week that closed 2 quotations, and the guy submitted the quotations, and then they said that they will give us a discount on their P's and G's if they're appointed for both contracts instead of just one. That type of negotiations. You guys understand that?